Welcome to another episode of On the Issues with Alon Ben-Meir. Today's guest is Dimitris Eleas, a political scientist, writer, and independent researcher. His work explores the role of personality in the social, historical, philosophy, global politics, antisemitism, and modern history, with a particular focus on the Holocaust. In this episode, Alon and Dimitris discuss the repercussions of the October 7th attack on Israel and Israel's retaliation, the rise of antisemitism, and the Israel-Iran war.
Good morning, Dimitris. We finally get to see each other, at least through Zoom. And like I said, hopefully we'll get together since we're both
Good
in.
morning.
Good morning to you. So I'm really delighted to have you today on this podcast. And the people definitely, who are listeners, very much interested, specifically still what is going on in the Middle East. The war in Iran is still ongoing. The conflict between Israel and the Palestinians has never stopped yet. The war in Lebanon is continuing. So before that, I just want to introduce you for a couple of words about you to our audience. So Dimitris is a New York-based a political scientist. He's a writer, independent researcher. His work explores the role of personality in the social, historical, philosophy, global politics, antisemitism, and modern history, with a particular focus on the Holocaust. He has written a plethora of articles, and his writing has appeared several times in the letters section to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post, and so many other things I can tell about Dimitris. So I'm going to stop here. Your credentials speak for themselves. And thank you again for appearing on this very important podcast. So, if I may, let me pose the first question to you, and that is, this whole debacle, this whole instability in the region right now has intensified dramatically since the October 7 attack, Hamas's attack on Israel, on Israeli settlement and kibbutzim in the south, and which resulted in the horrific war that followed, that Israeli retaliatory war. I want you to, of course, I just want to mention, at the time, Prime Minister Netanyahu's objective was to eliminate Hamas, and once and for all, and try to find some kind of an arrangement with the Palestinians. Of course, he has been and continue to be completely against the Palestinian state. But let's stick now with the what happened in Gaza. From your perspective, how do you see how do you see the repercussion, the implication of that conflict, that war, on what's still going on now, nearly 3 years later?
Yes. Thank you very much, Professor Ben-Meir, for the invitation, first of all. And I would like also to say that you have been an inspiration for me. And I do admire your struggle for all the people and for the weak, especially people around the world. Regarding the October 7 attack, this, of course, was a horrific attack against the state of Israel, was a barbarous attack, and at the same time was the biggest loss of Jewish life since the Holocaust. So what happened those days, those hours, shocked the Israeli society, shocked the Jewish diaspora, and shocked all the people around the world, including you and me. But at the same time, we have to see that we have to understand what there is behind the curtain in all those problems. If we go a bit back in history, Israel has become a powerful state, a powerful militarily is like a lobster. It won the wars in 48, in 67, in 73, and in a way, this gave rise to a kind of hubris. This situation could be different under the stable hands of people like Ben-Gurion or Golda Meir, but under the hands, the situation under the hands of people like Netanyahu, it became a great excuse to start the destruction of Gaza, to kill, let's say, even the idea of a two-state solution that we should have in the area. And I know very well that you have been a supporter of a two-state solution. And at the same time, uh, this was a great excuse to say no. We'll never talk about two states again for the next 40, 50 years. These people have to, we have to get rid of the Palestinians in West Bank and Gaza in different ways, which is not logical, is not, uh, is not exactly honoring the great contribution of the Jewish people, of the Jewish brilliance. I mean, throughout history. I mean, when we see, when we want to see what happened, the contributions in culture, in science, in literature, we always meet a Jewish giant there, a Jewish person. I mean, in all aspects of life. So today, what happens there, what happened is very sad. It's very sad for all of us to see the rumbles and that have been gathering around Gaza, and all the Gaza Strip has been turned to a no living zone. I do believe that not all people in Israel, not all people in Israeli society believe and support this situation. But, you know, uh, history shows that people sometimes uh, they fall into apathy. They try not to think much. They don't want to get tired. They want, okay, let's get rid of this. But no, we should, as soon as you speak, Professor Ben-Meir, all your life for human rights, we should say that people deserve, all people on this planet deserve equal human rights. Even the Israelis there and also the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And we should work.
Before we proceed with that, of course, we want to focus on that particular issue. In the war that that Netanyahu basically retaliatory war that ended up being war of revenge, retribution. Killing more than 70, almost 75,000, over 100,000 been injured. Most of Gaza is laying in ruin. And many scholars, observers of what's happening there, call that a genocidal war. And so when I pose this question to you, that is, as a result of that, Israel is now today is on the global stage is on the defensive. I, like many others, have defined that Israel basically collapse of its moral principles as a country because of what Netanyahu has done, and the repercussion we still feel today. And that is since that war, the entire region is unstable, and of course. Now we move from that war, that is the disaster that happened, and I agree with you. In my view, when the war initially took place, I thought, well, the time maybe both sides will realize there will be no solution until both agree on a two-state solution, because this war, this Hamas attack was not random. It has to be considered in the context of the 57 years of occupation, Palestinian suffering. So I'm not justifying by any means what Hamas has done. I think it's atrocious and horrific, and it should not have never happened. But the Israelis have been tending to ignore the fact that the Palestinians have been living under occupation for 57 years, and that they've been suffering a great deal, both in the West Bank and Gaza. And after all of this, of course, Netanyahu, the Israeli government, did not achieve its objective. They wanted to eliminate Hamas. Hamas is still working, still there, can control of half of Gaza. And so when we look at the situation now, there is no end in sight as far as that conflict is concerned, because like you said, the implications are not just to bury this two-state solution, but actually to pursue the greater Israel concept. This Israeli government, this is what is seeking, the greater. Now, my question to you now is that the obviously this war has had very negative repercussion against Israel. And this is now is continuing. And you wrote extensively and talk about a great deal about anti-Semitism. To what extent you feel that what happened during this war and this continuing, ongoing violent conflict has contributed to the rise of anti-Semitism, if there is a connection between the two, from your perspective?
Yes, Mr. Ben-Meir, people around the world now think and say, why, if the Jews have been through so much in history, and now they behave like this, why the rest of the people should honor what happened and should always remember what happened during the Holocaust? Why, why these people forget what happened to them? Some people say, and myself, as you know, and as I said to you yesterday, I have a great respect for the Jewish people, and I do support and have great respect for the state of Israel and its democratic ideals. But what's happening? I feel that Israel has been hijacked by one man, and his name is Benjamin Netanyahu. I feel that this man is obsessed. I feel this man is obsessed, was obsessed with Iran for 30, 40 years. He had his reasons, of course, but he's obsessed with a few other things. He's obsessed by being in power. He does want to lose power, that he's doing everything. And he's in power for the last 20, 30 years in Israel. So he does want to hear about the two-state solution. So he's doing everything he can to undermine the two-state solution in the area, in the
Exactly, yeah.
region. And at the same time, the brutality of Hamas, that the atrocious brutality of Hamas worked in a way in favor of his ideas and of his plans and of his obsessions. Like telling now to the Israeli society, you see, I'm telling you, these people, you can't trust them, you can't work with them. They're like the Iranians. And of course, Hamas has been sponsored by the Iranians, but is one of the thorns in Iranian. So this what has happened is very sad, and I'm sorry to say that I don't see as well a solution out of this as soon as this man stays there in power.
Yeah. You know what is sad, and I agree with you, what is very, very sad, initially after the Hamas had attacked, the whole international community was supportive of Israel, and they feel that what Hamas has done is not simply unacceptable, and there was outpouring support from all over the world. But once Israel began its war, and the result of the war, the whole world now forgotten completely about the October 7, about Hamas's massacre. And now they're talking only about the plight of the Palestinians. It's rightfully to speak about the plight of the Palestinians, but you are so correct. The people who suffered as much as the Jews have suffered over the centuries, culminating with the Holocaust, you would think they would have a look at a human life in a different way. But when I hear, for example, a minister in government today saying we have to kill every child, every mother, everyone living in a Palestinian, you wonder where this horrific thought is coming from. And he was asked, this is, I want my listener to listen, please to listen to this. He was asked, why would you want to kill children? He said, well, because these children will grow up to become a terrorist. Why would you want to kill mothers? He said, well, these mothers are going to bring more children and they will grow to become a terrorist. So we have to kill the mothers and the father. So this is the horrific type of mentality that it is basically destroying Israel's standing, as we said before, completely in the eyes of the international community. And now we go, from that, I want to ask you the next question in connection. You rightfully describe Netanyahu as a very possessed man, is an obsession. And then one has other obsession is Iran. He's been against Iran now for years, and from the time he came to power in 1997, he was against Iran. And this war, that of course that was the last June attack on Iran, um, um, that presumably Iran suffered tremendous losses. Trump said we obliterated the nuclear program. But then again, Netanyahu came to the White House, 3 months ago, and persuaded Trump to wage another campaign against Iran, and now we see the consequences of that. So where do you see that going on at this point? The war is continuing, the negotiations going nowhere, and the assumption that Netanyahu has made that once we attack Iran, the regime will collapse, we will destroy their nuclear program, we'll have a new regime, there'll be uprising, and we're going to have a new Iran. None of this, of course, has happened. And in fact, the opposite. Iran now discovered a new weapon, its own different kind of a nuclear weapon, that is the control of the Strait of Hormuz. And we know the result of that. What's your take on all of this? Again, is Netanyahu, who is continuing to wage wars. I believe, like you, just mostly to stay in power. And that is from his perspective, as long as there's conflict, Israel can make gains. It cannot make gains at the negotiating table. What's your take on all of this?
Yes, I mean, Professor Ben-Meir, if we look at the map, Iran is a very big country, 80 times bigger than Israel. But Israel as well is militarily a very strong country, a lobster. And what Israel achieved in 96-7 has been went in the books of history, of military history, not only in the history. So it's a powerful country, but at the same time, Iran is not innocent. The mullahs there are not innocent. I mean, you can't say, and the regime in Iran for the last 30, 40 years always says death to Israel, death to America. You can't say this. They should have changed as well. They should have changed their cosmotheory. I mean, Israel has the right to exist there and has to be in the Middle East and should be accepted by all the countries. Iran was working against this, but at the same time, by having people in southern Lebanon, in Hamas, in Yemen, the Houthis, attacking Israel, in a way, this behavior of Iran works again for Benjamin Netanyahu's obsessions. It's like saying to the Israelis, you see, I'm right to be obsessed with Iran for the last 30, 40 years because you see what it's doing. And of course, he persuaded the American president that perhaps by giving him a few compliments, he loves compliments, that man, more than anyone else. So he started a war. A war started from the end of February, and we see now the consequences of this war. I mean, we see destruction in many countries, not only in Iran, not only southern Lebanon, but we see that a lot of U.S. military hardware has been destroyed in UAE, in Saudi Arabia, in Iraq, in Jordan. So, in a way, by Iran, what managed to do the last 30, 40 years? To develop missile capabilities quite strong to be able to attack the United States if ever the United States decide to attack Iran, as it happened. And they have developed drone capabilities. They developed very cheap, the Shahed drones that cost $20,000, $30,000. So in a way, the war started, is a fiasco, and Iran, even though it lost its leadership, managed to respond, managed to fight back, and in a way, for some people, come stronger out. I mean, for some people in Beijing or in Moscow, they see Iran that coming out stronger out of this. And of course, we have the Strait of Hormuz that there he sees that he will try to control them. Who is going out, who is coming in, because the energy comes out from the Gulf states. The big tankers go, they're out in the oceans, and they move at the speed of like a bike. If you have a bike in your neighborhood, they move at this speed. So let's say the tankers left from there in January, February, they're reaching now a few areas around the world because they move very slowly. They are very big. But as soon as now, no more tankers coming out, so we have that the economic warfare. So Iran developed a kind of mosaic warfare to be able to defend its territory, and it managed to do that. But also we have the economic warfare, because Iran knew I can't win in military terms the United States. So I will follow a war of attrition, and I will struggle them economically. So that's what happened.
Yeah. The point, yeah, we're making a very important point, and that is, if I were in the Pentagon and sitting to decide, okay, what to do with Iran, I would consider everything. What is Iran is all about, and I think the United States has missed, as well as Israel, they underestimated what Iran is all about. That is, they have forgotten Persian Iran history, 2,500 years continuing history. These are extremely proud people. Incidentally, and I'm by no means justifying what the mullah have been doing since 1979 when they came to power. It was the greatest mischief in the Middle East. But for United States and Israel to fight a country like this, you would have to consider everything that the country is capable of doing. And that was simply overlooked completely. And they overlooked the fact that this is a country with over 1 million soldiers standing. They overlooked the fact that Iran has been developing massive amount of arsenals, including ballistic missiles and all of that. It was Trump who withdrew from the initial nuclear program agreement that Obama negotiated with Iran. And when we look at it today, Iran is much better off today in terms of its nuclear progress it has made since Trump withdrew, going back 5-6 years. So the American strategy toward Iran and Israel's strategy toward Iran has pretty much collapsed. And today Iran is standing. As a matter of fact, Iran is not even in a rush to find a solution, albeit they would like to have a solution, but they want a solution also on their own terms to a great extent. So here you have Netanyahu and you have the United States, the greatest two military powers, one in the Middle East and one on a global scale, have not been able to, as yet to force what Trump initially demanded, unconditional surrender. Not only that they have not surrendered, but they are now standing up and they are ready and willing to continue to fight. And like I said earlier, they have discovered the weapon of the Strait of Hormuz and basically brought the international trade 25% of that to a standstill. So where do we go from here? Not to speak, of course, of the humanitarian dimension that has been causing all over the globe. Where do you feel this is going to have to go from here? Where do we go from here?
You know, the situation is not very easy. But as far as I see, the Iranian regime, the people in Tehran, they say, Trump, America is playing with us as well for the last 20, 30 years. So we can't go to sign, we can't say that, yes, let's end this war and to have the same war after 1-2 years. So I think the Iranians as well, they keep playing now a game that, listen, we have defended our territory with missiles and drones. We shocked the world. Everybody was shocked around the world, especially the first 4-6 weeks. They damaged when the Washington Post or the New York Times, I think the Washington Post first said the American bases have been damaged so much. Many people said, no, this is a lie. But after a few weeks, there was the New York Times came up, and also the Wall Street Journal said, yes, the damage in the American hardware is massive. Is and the war has costed 250 billion dollars. So this is a, an expensive game for someone that is in the White House or someone in Tel Aviv, that they have big egos or they have obsessions. And but at the same time, it's very important what you said, Professor Ben-Meir, about the history. Yes, the Iranian people, they have a history behind them. They have some dignity. They have worked hard. And it seems, yes, they have made a few mistakes, the mullah especially, the last 20, 30 years by saying death to Israel, death to Iran. But, but we can't also destroy the whole of Iran. We can't also destroy the people there. We can't have another Syria in the region. We can't have another Libya, another Iraq. We can't destroy the countries. Because what we have said, and who pays the heaviest price in this? Already we have 100, in the first weeks of the war, we had 160, 70 young girls died in Iran. A crime against humanity. This is very bad. Who pays the heaviest price are the poor, the children, and the workers. They are the people suffer the most. And also the Americans suffer because they see their tax dollars, they don't go to hospital bills and to medicines. They go to foreign wars. And especially Donald Trump, he won the election by saying no more wars. And he started another war, and it becomes, it's like it's the America's playbook. They say no wars and they always start new wars, even the Democrats and the Republicans. We have to be careful because people, I do believe that Israel now has, even there are some problems, there are some democratic resistances in the Israeli society and the Israeli parliament. The same in America. But it's not the same situation in Moscow or in Beijing. And if, let's say, countries like Israel and like America, they go on the path of a kind of galloping authoritarianism, so it's like we give a great excuse to people in Beijing or in Moscow to do even worse things in the future. And of course, we have the case of the Ukrainian war, that is another big crime, and has costed to Russia itself close to 1 million people deaths and dead soldiers and wounded, according to BBC. These are massive crimes against humanity. And the crimes against humanity become bigger because we have leaders with obsessions and big egos, and this makes the situation very dangerous. So
So
that's my that
my
we have to
question
be.
for you now, yeah, you're
Yes.
absolutely correct. The question today is that this war I know there is a so-called ceasefire, but they're still exchanging fires every now and then between between the United States and Iran, and the so-called ongoing negotiations still going on with the Pakistan mediating between the two sides. Um, every other day, Trump keeps threatening that he's going to restart the war. Um, but no one, the Iranian obviously don't believe Trump as far as they can throw him because twice before, three times before, in the middle of the negotiation in June of last year and in February of this year, while the negotiations been going on, he attacked Iran. So they have no reason whatsoever to trust him. So there's a lack of trust. They feel now more emboldened because of what they have discovered. They know that no power really can actually conquer Iran. Iran is a massive country, like you said, with a formidable terrain. Alexander the Great fell. The Mongols fell. They could not occupy Persia. So they feel emboldened. And now here we are now, and they still have nearly 1,000 pounds of enriched uranium to 60%, very close to what's needed for a nuclear weapon. So where do we go from here? If you were to advise this administration, okay, what are you going to do? What would you say? What would you say?
I mean,
So let's talk about a couple of scenarios here.
yeah.
What would you suggest?
I mean, uh, if I was about to advise the White House, the President Trump, I will say, listen, you want to stay in history? You won't stay in history by putting your name on the dollar bill or on the Kennedy Center, and the judge says remove it and things like this. If you want to stay in history, you have to do some things like in America, there are 10, 15 million people that they have no exactly status. Help them to get it because many of them work very hard. Things like this. If you want to stay in history, protect the environment and do things like this. You won't stay in history by making another war.
Yeah, but connection with Iran, what would you suggest him to do
Yes,
with
I mean,
Iran?
regarding the situation with Iran, I will say to him, you, this war has, this war must end now. I mean, America must show some respect to Iran because, in a way, Iran fought back fiercely and surprised everybody. As of course, at the same time, Iran must show some respect to the United States. Iran must say we'll stop going after Israel, and Israel, we accept Israel's position in the Middle East and has the right to exist and things like this, and to end this war. And at the same time, he should ask from Iran, listen, the recent war, when my country, United States and Israel attacked you, you proved that you don't need nuclear weapons because the missiles you have and the drones damage already our allied forces. So please give up. I mean, you can say, of course, please in history, but sometimes you need to be diplomatic. Give up your uranium, give up your program of enriching uranium and having a nuclear bomb, and please try to minimize your program you have on missile technology and drone technology, and to help Iran to come to be part of that area. It's like, you know what I remember, Professor Ben-Meir? I remember that when Roosevelt with Churchill used to meet with Stalin, Stalin used to go a bit late sometimes. And Churchill used to say to Roosevelt, oh, next time we'll be late ourselves. And Roosevelt used to say, no, let's treat him like being a gentleman, and one day he will realize. You have to treat Iran with some respect. Israel has to do this, and all to have some good relationships in the neighborhood, in the Gulf, and all the states to work together in cooperation to be able to rebuild themselves and to have better ties. And they don't need to spend so much money. I mean, if you see United Arab Emirates, they spend so much money in buying arms and weapons from around the world, especially from United Kingdom and from America, and also from Israel. This race cannot go on. I mean, if you spend so much money to improve your military capabilities, means one day, yes, you prepare for peace, but means in the back of your mind also is war is coming. You know, these societies, also Iran, they need to change their perspectives, and they need to put in front the human rights of the people in Iran, in the region. They need to work together. They need to plan together for a better future. I mean, in the Gulf states and in the region, they plan to destroy each other. Cannot go on. So America, Trump has to play a role as a big brother to help them do this, not to make the things worse. So that's my opinion.
Well, I mean, obviously, of course, what you're saying is correct. The question is, there's also the elephant in the room still. And from my perspective, as long as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict continue to rage, it's going to be extremely difficult. I mean, there's also it implicates also what's going on with Iran. For example, look at Hezbollah today. In the negotiation between the United States and Iran about to reach some kind of an agreement, Iran also insisting that the war in Lebanon ought to end, that Israel attack against Hezbollah ought to end. Hezbollah is one of the part of the Iranian axis of resistance, and they want to keep Hezbollah still alive. But your point is well taken. That is, a solution will have to ensure that Iran become integral part of the region. That is, as a constructive player, not a pariah. What the United States and Israel has been doing, trying to project Iran consistently as a pariah state. We have to know this, going all the way to 1979, albeit under no circumstances do I justify what Iran has been doing since 1979 under the clergy. But like we said, Iran is Iran. And the only way, in my view, is not to seek regime change. That's what Netanyahu is looking for. It's not going to happen. In fact, they say we have a regime change only because they killed the father. Now the younger son is coming. There's no regime change. In fact, the regime now is even more extremist than the regime before that, when the Ayatollah Khamenei, the father, was in power. So Iran, that is, any approach to Iran, and I agree with you, are to include incorporating Iran into the Middle Eastern structure of peace. But that structure of peace is going to still continue to be fractured if there is no solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And here we have another problem because this government, and sadly, tragically, I should say, not only the Netanyahu government, this extremist government, is against Palestinian statehood, but there is no opposition parties today. They are afraid. No one hardly ever talk about the two-state solution in Israel among the opposition parties, mind you. So so I'm saying is this is an extremely complex issue, plague the Middle East and in such a manner so that we have to begin to sort this out. And you have to start with what's going on right now and then go backwards to see if there's going to be a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So let me go back to this. That is, we need a solution to end the conflict now between Iran and the United States and Israel. So the parameters, I feel, for example, although Iran agreed to suspend its nuclear program for 5 years or 10 years, but they're not going to give up their right to have a peaceful nuclear program. I wrote a very early piece in the war in last June that to end this conflict with Iran, Iran should be allowed to have some kind of a nuclear program, peaceful program, under strict monitoring by the international community, as it has been, and agreed to that. The sanctions against Iran ought to be lifted gradually. Iran has to prove that it is worthy of being trusted to move, and this is economic, being given, releasing some of the funds that are being frozen in the United States. That is, there are ways of mitigating this conflict, but as long as, in my view, as long as Netanyahu and Trump continue to seek, even to this day, in my view, regime change, because they feel that as long as there's Islamic regime in Iran, it cannot be trusted. It is continue to aim to destroying Israel, and therefore they're looking for a solution that will prevent Iran from ever having a nuclear program, and that is not going to happen. That is, Iran somehow, somewhere is going to still find a way of having some kind of a nuclear program because they feel this is their right. And to some extent, you say, yeah, they are correct in making. Saudi Arabia would like to have a peaceful nuclear program as well. So I see a deadlock here. That is, we are looking maybe for a respite, an interim solution. And so the United States ought to be looking for an interim solution for the time being, to declare an end, completely permanent end to the war, and begin serious negotiation, opening the Strait of Hormuz, and begin serious negotiation about what is going to be the nuclear program, how to integrate Iran into the regional peace framework. Again, I want to go back to this, try to see if we can put some kind of conclusion to it. Do you see any such a prospect?
I
I
mean,
know I went more than 2 minutes, 3 minutes, talking my take, my view on it. But do you see any prospect that this could move perhaps in that kind of direction?
uh, Professor Ben-Meir, if we look at the region, if we look at the bigger picture of the region, needs two states there. One state, there is, I believe also that the two-state solution is logical uh, to solve the problem and the hostility between the Israelis and the Palestinians. But also, we need to create in the future, we need to look for a small Kurdish state. I mean, before I go to the two-state solution, we have the western part of Iran, the majority are Kurds. In the southeast part of Turkey, majority Kurds. In Syria, we have many Kurds. There is a kind of autonomy in northern Iraq, northern eastern Iraq. So, in a way, the international community should find ways to push for kind of autonomy, to have some kind of autonomy the Kurds should have in Iran, in Turkey, in Syria, as they do in Iraq. And possibly, let's say, after 40, 50 years, all these autonomous regions to be integrated into a state. So this will solve a problem because we're talking about 40, 50 million people without a state. This is a big thorn in that region. The other thorn is what happened with Israel and the Palestinians. Uh, I don't think I don't think it's good for the picture of the Jews, of the Israelis and the Jews around the world, what has been happening in Gaza and the West Bank. I don't think, because everybody, we spoke before for antisemitism, everybody thinks when thinks of the Israelis today and the Jews throughout history, everybody thinks one thing, that if is, I will say here, I have the word, a tiny people who would be pursued by Hitler and Stalin, the Arab League, and the Iranian Axis. This is the historical framework. But these people should be brave as well and logical and to see all the parameters that the Palestinians need to have a kind of autonomy in West Bank and Gaza. And we can say for 40, 50 years, Israel will be responsible for the defense in those regions. And after, you know what I mean. So we'll have a small Palestinian state, can deal with everything except the defense. The defense will be in the hands of Israel. And after 50 years, they can deal with defense as well. So this can be something logical and something that can help us to go forward, and also the whole region to go forward. Because when we look in history, we need to look not only what happens in the next 5, 10, 20 years, but let's speak after 40, 50 years. What the situation is going to be there? You said before, Professor Ben-Meir, something that's something that is right and logical, that the Palestinians, the Arabs, they have 4 or 5 kids, each 6, 10. So in a way, one day, Yasser Arafat said that the power that the Palestinians have is that they make a lot of kids. So this problem has to be solved. We have to find, because we have to find some logical solution from now, and the framework can be a kind of autonomy now. And as I said, the same for the Kurds, the same for the Palestinian kind of autonomy. Israel will be responsible for its defense, and after 40, 50 years, let's say. So we can have a schedule to work. 50 years for a human life is a long time, but for history is not a long time. So like this, people will remember us after 40, 50, 200 years.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about birth rate. Of course, the Palestinian, the Arab state have much larger birth, percent, compared to the Jews. It's higher. But even today, there are 7 million Israelis, and there are 7 million Palestinians in Israel itself, in the West Bank and Gaza. So this whole thing for the Israelis trying to prevent the Palestinians from ever having some kind of autonomy, it's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. And how are you going to displace 7 million Palestinians? Are you going to kill 7 million Palestinians? They're not going to go anywhere. You can displace them in Gaza. You can displace them what they're doing now slowly in the West Bank. but that 7 million of them are going to be there. And Israel still has to wake up one day before everything else is lost and say, we have to have a long-term solution. I've been maintaining all along that, Iran enmity against Israel also started based on the fact that Israel had been denying the Palestinians their right. The same thing was happening with Hezbollah. That is, if Israel were to focus and try to find an amenable, amicable, acceptable, mutually acceptable solution between Israel and the Palestinians, that's why I keep referring to that. The whole Middle East would have become completely far more different than it is today. And my concern is, since there is no prospect right now, at least as I can see in Israel, to move in that direction, and that's where my pessimism to some extent comes to the fore. I don't see how you're going to calm the region, because even if there's going to be an election, there's going to be an election in Israel, and let's say Netanyahu is removed from power, and like I said before, these opposition party, None of them, none of them is openly advocating for a permanent solution based on a two-state solution with the Palestinians. So that big elephant is in the room. It's going to be there for a long while. But like again, we have to start with the most recent conflict, and that is dealing with Iran now. Before we go further, I just want to mention the ongoing war now between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The Lebanese government desperately would like to have peace with Israel. They really do, no matter what. They were trying to see if they could disarm Hezbollah, and they came very close to achieving some kind of an agreement, but that also did not happen. And today, the war against Hezbollah is going on. Israel was planning to attack again Hezbollah's income in Beirut itself. Trump only yesterday told Netanyahu, no, you cannot attack Beirut anymore. But Israel now is waging continuous bombardment of southern Lebanon. But Hezbollah seem to now, just like what Iran has shown, a huge capacity to endure the Israeli onslaught. Where do you see that conflict going?
Professor Ben-Meir, I will say uh, something before I answer your question. Yes, Israel, a great country, we support 1000%, but is at the size of New Jersey, let's say. But this is not exactly as should be. I mean, personally, I will say to you that I believe one mistake, one great mistake that took place in Israeli politics is, I don't know if you agree with this, but I will say it, is the return of Sinai Peninsula. Israel should have kept, because Israel won it in war. So if it had kept it, will be much bigger in size, today's Israel, and there was no need in a way to grab a bit more land. I will say this into brackets, in the West Bank or in the Gaza Strip today. Some
Yeah,
people say yes.
if I may just stop you right in the middle, I can tell you this, that I lived through that period in 1973, and I'm very much aware. I can tell you that categorically, under no circumstances, there would have been peace between Israel and Egypt.
Yes, I understand that,
If Israel did not
but
return the
but
Sinai. No,
Israel.
but you have to also remember that Egypt was the largest Arab country in terms of population. And for Israel to make peace with Egypt, that really eliminated the possibility of all Arab states to together to attack Israel, because without Egypt, that was really put an end to collective Arab onslaught against Israel, and things have changed dramatically. Of course, in 1995, Jordan also established peace. So to suggest that that would have, I disagree with you here, because there would have been no peace with Egypt. This is an Egyptian territory. Israel has never had any historic claim or religious claim to this Sinai Peninsula. So I'm not sure that would have been a proper solution. But I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, please.
No problem. Professor, I said that, I mean, if I was in military, you said to me before, what you'll advise White House or Trump to do. So if I was those years, I will say no. It won in war. But I understand your point. It could be much more difficult to have peace with Egypt. That is the biggest one very big Arab country. So to come now to what happens in southern Lebanon, yes, I see. Of course, as you mentioned before, rightly, the Iranian axis, I mean, has got a few, has got people and supporters, let's say, in Yemen, the Houthis, in Gaza Strip, the Hamas fighters, and in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah. That Hezbollah, in a way, has managed over the years, taking all the resources, the economical resources from Iran, from Tehran, to use them cleverly to train the soldiers, to have drones, to have to develop military capabilities, and in a way is harming Israel, is harming the northern part of Israel. But at the same time, what Israel is doing at the moment is again sad, just to use a mild word, not to say atrocious, what again is happening, because Israel now wants to go up to Litani River. I mean, in the back of the mind of a logical person, it would be a question or an idea. Is Israel is trying to change the borders towards Lebanon? What is Israel is doing? Is only fighting the Hezbollah fighters? I don't think so. And if it was, because if this was the case, we wouldn't have there a few hundred dead Lebanese people, because as soon as the Israel was a bit cunning here, as soon as the war started with Iran, and the allies were Israel and America against Iran, Israel started a war by its own in southern Lebanon. And as we know, so many people have died there, so many buildings have been damaged, so many people were living for a few weeks outside from their houses and all these things. So I don't think this imperialistic logic of Israel can help it. Already we said that the Jewish people have been through a lot in history, and we respect them, and many people around the world. That's why there is a kind of rise of antisemitism now, because of what they see and what they perceive. They perceive Israel, modern Israel, not as something under the stable and strong hands of Golda Meir, of Ben-Gurion, but as under someone that is obsessed with expansion, with the wars all the time, with winning elections and staying in power. Because this guy, Benjamin Netanyahu, likes smoking expensive cigars and having I don't know. So things like this. So, and once, if you want to achieve your goals, sometimes what you do, you put ashes in the eyes of the people. That's what Netanyahu is doing to the Israelis in the Israeli society, and also to the people in the region, and to the people around the world. But some people react to this, because if we had, we know very well, you know very well, Professor, that people that champion two-state solution like you all your life, they were assassinated in Israel and killed. If things were a bit different 20, 30 years ago, will be a bit better today. Yeah. But the last 30 years, there was an obsessed man there that said something for me is very funny as well, and sad, that Jesus Christ has not any advance over Genghis Khan. No, no. We don't need people like Genghis Khan in history. We had enough. We had enough crazy guys like this and crazy dictators. We need people that can be calm, can be reliable, can be serious and not obsessed. Because, as I said before, who pays the heaviest price? The poor, even the poor in Israel, their children, and the workers.
Yeah, and you know, you mentioned a couple of times Golda Meir, Ben Gurion. I go back. I lived for a few years in Israel. 11 years I lived in Israel, actually. The whole campaign, the whole against the Palestinian, really, it might start even way before even Netanyahu came to power. I remember very well once Golda Meir was asked, about the Palestinian have rights. She said, "What Palestinian? Palestinian are not a nation. They are not a nation. They just came in to occupy our land." So even Golda Meir, going back now how many years, 6 decades or more, uh, did not recognize a Palestinian nationhood at all. Ben-Gurion was more evasive. Ben-Gurion was asked, what about the Palestinians? He said, well, it's better to have Israel on a part of our homeland, historic homeland, than not having a state altogether. So we have to sort of work with the local community. He was a little bit more moderate, but not Golda Meir. What I'm trying to say, there is this notion, rather pervasive in Israel itself, that this land has been bequeathed to us by God. And the irony here people come in and say, this land belongs because we were here 3,000 years ago, where the Palestinians have been living there now for the hundreds and hundreds of years, they don't have that right to that land. And that is the irony of times and the duplicity that many, unfortunately, Israelis are engaging. And one thing, and I've always been preaching, talking, writing, teaching, and tell the Israelis, what is your vision? Where do you think Israel is going to be 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the line? That is, Israel is going to become it is already a pariah state, and it is living by the blade, by the sword. And that is what Israel's future is going to look like. And laser is a solution to the Palestinians. Israel is going to have to live in a state of war almost indefinitely. But I want to leave the last few words for you. We have a few minutes left. I'd like you to give us an overall take, but a couple of minutes that we have left.
Yeah, but Professor Ben-Meir, yes, it's the historic land of the Jews. Understand that? Understand? I mean, because if I could say that the Ten Commandments were given to Moses 1500 years before there were any Christians. So, yes, historically is a Jewish land. The Jews are there. And but at the same time, some other people used to live there, when
Of
in a
course.
way some of the Jews were away. So we have to see society, we have to look at history with open mind and good heart, because I think we need in life, Professor Ben-Meir, we need to have a good mind and also a good heart, and both mind and heart to be in the right position, in the right place. Because if it's not, we have problems. We have problems, many problems at the moment in North Korea, in Syria, we have in Afghanistan, Equatorial Guinea, we have in Sudan, in Iran, in Myanmar, even Venezuela, all over the place. Abuses of human rights all over the place. But it's not good to have abuses like this at the neighborhood of Israel, at the yard of Israel. No, we love the Israeli people a lot. We love the Jewish people a lot. And Professor Ben-Meir, I want to say something like this. When you spoke to me earlier, just a while ago, you said you leave the closing to me. No, no, no. The closing will be to you. But Professor Ben-Meir, I wish you had stayed in Israel and you were in politics. Perhaps by now, we could have two-state solution. Really, I'm sure, because the way you spoke to me, I said, why? So I know there are reasons that sometimes we decide to do some writing, some books, some other things, but I wish you were in politics in Israel for the last 20, 30 years. Perhaps then will be a kind of autonomy for the Palestinians. Uh,
I've been declared persona non grata a long time ago in Israel.
I understand,
I'm
understand.
just kidding, but
Also, Professor, we have also many problems in America that we didn't touch. We have here Gallup authoritarianism. Perhaps we may speak another time for this.
I
But
hope so, yes.
also, I would like to say as well, Professor, to you that we need Also, around the world, better education, because better schools, people to read more newspapers, people to listen more conversations like our conversations that we try to learn and to develop a logical path in history and in life. Because education gives character formation. We need people with character and personality, and also good mind and good heart in the right place. Because if we don't have this, we have problems, and we have problems now in the White House. We have problems in Kremlin. We have problems in Beijing, and we have problems also in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv. So
Thank you so much. And then we're going to have to end on this good note on your part. I really appreciate it. It's just 1 hour passed so quickly.
oh, I know. I wish we had more to talk. Yeah, really,
Uh,
really, yeah.
thank you again, and I hope we'll have another opportunity to have a
Thank
further
you,
chat on
Professor.
this
Yes,
very
it was
important
the
topic.
first. It was the knowing each other. Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Dimitris. Thank you so much. All the
Thank,
best.
thank you
Bye.
very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode on the issues. You can find this podcast on my SoundCloud page, and stay tuned to my social media accounts for the latest analysis and announcements.